Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all are coping well with the new realities of life. I'm hopeful things will get better when we can meet in person. But until such time, I'm delighted to be joining you virtually. My name is Milind, and I'm a digital transformation leader, having led digital capabilities in various companies, small and big, more recently in banking sector. Just to introduce the topic, I'll be talking about digital leadership and enterprise agility. Now, the world of leadership and enterprise agility, where do they meet? Where do they conflict? Is there a conflict in the first place? What aspects of leadership come in sharp focus in the agile and digital world that we increasingly move into? Now, the definitions for leadership and agility are on the screen, and I'm sure many of you will find these too simplistic. There are many other aspects to leadership than being in control of a group or a situation. And same with agility. There are many other aspects of agility. I think the point here is what I want to share is my experiences and thoughts on how these two interconnected topics operate. And I'll be giving some examples as I go through. My starting point on this one was some of the business publications. I know a lot of material exists in academia. Many notable speakers and business leaders have spoken a great deal about leadership. But I wanted to look at what has been said and what are the areas I have seen that some leaders need to change a little bit in the digital world. Maybe there is change in emphasis, the change in style. And my starting point was these business publications to really use word cloud in these publications to see if there are some common traits, some focus areas, and then examine my own experiences and share my thoughts. So I looked at these publications, pretty reputed ones, and here is what I found through one of the word cloud applications. As you can see, the usual suspects of, I guess, people, employees, work, success dominate quite a lot. These terms appear quite frequently. Learning as a term just about makes into the top 5 frequently used words. So we've got some answer here. About the learning being just about slipping into the 5th place, just hold that thought for a second. Now this is one word cloud application. If I use another one, very similar sort of philosophy, just throw slightly different presentation and slightly different feel to it. Apart from the words in the previous cloud, you will notice words such as can and will and must and success feature heavily. And if these words give me a feeling of certainty, where the leader knows and predictably moves the organization relying on her or his wisdom, that's where one of my first reflections are, which is being okay with not knowing the answers is fine. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me explain. The patterns not even imagined beforehand are discovered by machine learning, which necessitates new learnings, what I call unlearning, to solve critical business problems. Now, I've provided a couple of examples, predictive sourcing being one. What predictive sourcing can do is it can combine very diverse set of data sources, maybe historical sales volumes, external climate data, supplier products, logistics, in a way that wasn't possible earlier to uncover some hidden patterns. The other example that I have outlined here is K-means algorithm. Now, what that tries to do is, instead of splitting your population, whether that's a customer population or any other demographics that you are interested in, instead of splitting that into the traditional fixed buckets of, say, low income, medium income, high income, it creates its own clusters. This is quite tremendous. We don't have to define our own clusters. Algorithm can provide us the answer. How cool is that? And as I was saying, there are many other examples. The point here is, could leaders move away from fixed or expert solutions, and could we be led by intelligence available to us through machines? Trial data feed is another example. You can feed the model to explore initial insights, and the process can be repeated to refine the insights. And this is enterprise agility in action. Another example that I have outlined here is, why rely on your experience or your intuition? That is, I know what I'm doing. I know my customers. I know what my customers want. When you have sophisticated A/B testing, which will tell you if one version is better or worse, and whether the difference between the two is statistically significant. This is marvelous. The second perspective I wanted to share was around agility in everything and at every level. Now, I know adapting to changing circumstances is important for Agile, and it has been extensively talked about. There are all sorts of things that are happening in an organization that needs adapting to changing circumstances. That's new staff joining, some new suppliers coming on board, some suppliers going bust, new tools, many more things. However, I think the critical thing about enterprise agility is really about a view of outside-in approach. So adapting your ways of working and your delivery on what customer wants is what is important for enterprise agility. The second point that I have outlined here is about having a vision. Having a grand vision is fine, and it has value in it. Equally important is to empower people so that they can create their own sprint goals or OKRs at their level. Whether you use a SAFe framework or not, that scaled agile framework or not, maybe you use a different framework, that is all fine. I think what is important is all legs of the enterprise use agile approaches and philosophies. That includes business, that includes risk, audit, and operations leadership. I'm going to talk about two examples where this actually is best fitting in different organizations. DevOps is a really good example. Development and operations can coexist. There are natural tensions between the two. One wants change delivered quickly, and one wants stability. I think in terms of enterprise agility, the DevOps philosophy and all the approaches, which I won't go into, really is a critical element. Enterprise agility, what I've shown on the right-hand side, can be achieved in other functions and activities as well. And investment decision cycles, for example, which are team-based, much more frequent than the sort of traditional project-based yearly funding cycles. The other example is a synchronization of reporting cycles. When different legs of the organizations have very different reporting cycles, then it can act as a drag on the organization as a whole. And the last one on the right hand side, the use of tools and terminologies across all legs of the organization is an important aspect of enterprise agility. whether you use Kanban, Jira, Confluence, maybe some data analytics tools, it's important to embrace some of these appropriately. Otherwise, what happens is, new initiatives or interactions in one side of the organization can become overly onerous because other legs of the organization don't quite relate to these things as seamlessly as they could. The third thing I wanted to talk is about digital fluency, and I'm probably a lot more traditional in my thinking. You do need to have a technical minimum viable fluency, even at leadership level, because it's an essential ingredient, in my opinion, to stay relevant in a rapidly changing world. Now, digital can mean many different things to many different people. I have outlined what I see as the main components of the digital, but for your own organization, you can add to the circle. I've talked about data science quite a lot. Agile obviously is an absolute must. Cloud offers many opportunities and just makes the seamless CI/CD pipeline management in DevOps so much possible. Of course, AI and machine learning doesn't need an introduction nowadays. Open source probably is one of the least talked about ingredient, which I think is an important component as well. And then there is digital risk and governance. I will be touching upon that in subsequent slides. The digital natives will have very different challenges in terms of digital fluency in their organization compared to a large traditional organization. And hence the need for strategic capability development program, which looks at longer term digital needs and what extra support needs to be mobilized and in which pockets of the organization and what skills we need to recruit externally. The fourth aspect is about ability to attract and retain digital talent. I guess the easiest perspective or easiest dimension to understand. And there is a need for digital leadership well, there are two levels at which the talent attraction and retention issue manifests itself. The first one is really knowing what technical skills are valuable. And the second angle is about what sort of culture and what sort of platform or environment that I'm creating or my staff is creating where digital can really flourish. Now, if you're able to say the things that I have outlined on this slide, you're well ahead of the curve. I attract curious minds. I'm patient with failures. I reward innovation. I encourage connectedness. I have T-shaped skills. I provide psychological safety. And I think these are really, really critical aspects of how talent management is slightly different when it comes to the digital and agile world. Great. Now we are coming to the sort of last dimension of what I wanted to share with you, which is an important aspect of digital leadership in enterprise and enterprise agile world, which is digital risk and governance. Now, when we march on this digital journey, we need business and governance leaders to reimagine governance in a digital age. Now, I have extensively talked about this in previous conferences. Conscious of time, I'll touch only upon a couple of aspects here. Now, if you close your eyes and think of one object or one artifact that comes to your mind when I say the word governance or control, what that would be. I just repeat, I want you to close your eyes for a few seconds and think of an object or artifact that comes to your mind when I say the word governance or control. Now, if a 72-page long written report comes to your mind, which is what I have depicted on the left-hand side here, or do you get something which is on the right-hand side? Now, I know this is quite a simplistic example, but what I'm trying to explain here is, remember, a lot of controls can now be codified. It is important that you reimagine governance, automate the controls. The example on the right might be a product backlog item, but your governance and risk requirements can go straight into the backlog rather than an afterthought or an add-on inspection after the product has been built. That is digital. The other couple of important aspects of digital governance, explainability will become important for digital governance. And there are two angles to it. First, to explain the machine learning decision to impacted customers. For example, if my loan application has been rejected, it is important that the customer knows why that is, and if that was a machine-led decision. Explainability to the business owner is another important aspect about the workings of certain algorithms, because most of the times the accountability lies with the business owner on how your AI and machine learning application has been configured. The other angle is obviously about transparency of what data we collect, how we collect it, how we use it. Office of Information Commissioner has published some draft guidance around this, and there is quite a lot of regulatory focus on these areas as well. So we're just coming to an end. Thank you for your listening. I hope you have learned something new. I would really welcome your comments, specifically two things I would like to know. What appealed you most in my presentation, and what specifically did you learn new? If you can reach me directly or interact on the LinkedIn, that would be great. So just coming to the last conclusion on this topic. The digital journey has less finality to it, as I started the presentation. And I have explained the reasons throughout the presentation. The arrival terminal is less distinct, if you will. And it demands these sort of conviction leaders amongst us to dial down some of our long-held convictions and be more open and more led by answers provided by data and intelligence of others, in this case, machines. Now, every organization will have very different challenges depending on their digital maturity and size of operations. But I think the digital journey is infinitely more beautiful because the destination is not fully known, at least for now. I think enterprise-wide agility and digital leadership are important chapters in that journey. And on the right-hand side, what I have outlined are kind of summary of what I talked throughout this presentation. And these are the key characteristics of digital leaders or digital organizations. Openness to be led by data and intelligence of algorithms, promoting agility across the enterprise, being technically fluent, having the ability to attract the digital talent, digitally ethical and digitally governed. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be staying here for question and answers. I think I hand it over back to Chris.